Hello everyone and welcome back to Superboy Beyond, and after our last 2 weeks just doing nothing but Beyond content, we are returning to Superboy and we're going to be watching Season 3, Episode 3, The Lair, which is an episode that I only have vague memories of. Something about contaminated water causing mutants to happen. I don't remember much more about it. I think there was a twist ending, but I could be wrong. It'll be interesting when we get to the end, see if I'm right.
Yep.
But yeah, if this is your first time watching one of our commentaries, it's not like a typical YouTube reaction video. You're not going to hear audio from the episode, but there will be a very heavily filtered version up there in the middle, purely just so you can keep in time with us, you know, in case somebody rings the doorbell or something. Either way, we're about to get into this. Are you ready, Chris?
I'm ready when you're ready.
Okay, so I'll count us in 3, 2, 1, play. And now I know that there are 2 of the guest stars in this who have appeared in other episodes. One of them is Anthony Carone, who was in 3 episodes of Superboy according to IMDb, but I could have sworn it was more. I always like seeing him pop up. He's one of the Superboy guest stars that I said appears in an old episode of the British sitcom Only Fools and Horses. He's one of those actors. And the other one is the guy that played Joseph Flynn, I think his name was, or the guy posing as Joseph Flynn in Paranoia. So 2 guest stars that I always enjoy seeing. So This should be fun. And I managed to talk over the credits without mentioning them. So I guess I just failed though, didn't I? Because I just did. Never mind.
Yep. They're really setting up the atmosphere here, you know.
Yeah, I was just going to say I like the way that, I don't know if they added a smoke machine or if it was just natural misting, but either way, it really adds to the atmosphere in this scene. And that's not even a terrible car crash. I mean, he broke his way through the window a little bit slowly, but you know, you can't have everything. But yeah, I like how it's setting it up that this guy is basically an urban legend at this point. He's being talked about like he's like Bigfoot or something. It's a really interesting way to set it all up, especially considering obviously this is only the 3rd episode where Clark has been working for the Bureau. So it's, Season 3's format changes really coming into their own already.
Yep. And of course, Jackson being, the ever-present skeptic, saying, "Oh, well, look, they were drunk.
Yeah,
there's no monster."
I always like that you know the guy that's running this particular bureau is the biggest skeptic on the staff. I always found that really interesting. It's probably what makes him good at his job because let's face it, it's probably if they've got real aliens coming down, can you imagine how many hoaxes there must be in this universe? Like if it happens once for real, it's bound to happen like 100 times where it's just somebody trying to make some money or something, you know?
Yeah. I love this joke that Clark just said, you know, Jackson's talking about the Loch Ness Monster, you know, having arms. And Clark says, the Loch Ness Monster doesn't have arms. It's almost like he's trying to tell him, I've seen the thing. And then Jackson looks at him and says, allegedly. And of course, Lana being the bleeding heart here, you know, about the monster. And she thinks it's like a Bigfoot creature and not a mutated man.
And I like that she's, you know, trying to get people to treat it with some kindness, essentially. She's just saying, it's not actually hurt anyone. All it's done is scare the shit out of some people, but all they did was see the thing. It's not like he actually did anything to scare them.
But
Lana's right.
Yeah, she is right. But the problem is that, going into stuff like this with that kind of attitude, treat it with kindness. You need to have a little bit more caution. Because, maybe it hasn't hurt somebody before. That doesn't mean it won't hurt somebody going forward.
True. Yeah, maybe she should be taking the stance of, let's investigate this thing, find out if it actually is dangerous. And if it is, we'll deal with it. Otherwise, let's leave it alone. Maybe it's just a case of we need a little bit more information. I like that Matt has already basically located what's going on. Not even on purpose. Like, the guy technically found him.
Yeah. I will say that, the makeup on this actor who's playing the creature, in the daytime, it doesn't look good.
No, it's I don't know, it just looks a little bit more looks too dry. It looks almost like it's foam. It's like a foam type thing. It doesn't look like it's like the latex or whatever. Doesn't look like it moves quite right. But then again, they've got parts of his face painted green that almost looks like mold or something. I don't know, maybe it works. Maybe you're not supposed to feel completely comfortable looking at it. Maybe just adding some slightly shinier areas just to make it look like some of it was like slightly wet or oozing. Maybe like make the sores like look sore.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all it would have needed.
Yeah.
But let's face it, even big movies make that mistake. Like, let's face it, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, I'm pretty sure there's one of those movies where they just didn't bother with all the shiny elements, so it just looks completely fake the entire time. Yeah. I think Nightmare 2 was probably my favourite look, but I'm really getting off topic now. One thing I do like, though, is showing what they do at the Bureau. We've already had Matt investigating. Now we've got Lana out there investigating. A lot of the time in these stories, they just kind of show up as stuff happens.
Yeah.
In this, I like that they're proactive. They literally, they're not waiting for the story to come to them. They're off in search of the story.
Yep. And now you got the obligatory group of gun nuts going out to hunt it.
I mean, yeah, let's face it. How many teams of hunters do you think have gone out into the woods in search of Bigfoot by this point?
Yeah, this is essentially the Superboy equivalent of the villagers with the pitchforks.
Yeah, yeah. One of the few shirt rips in the show.
Yeah, I can see what you were talking about. How they definitely needed to change out the costume by the end of the season, because it was very faded here.
Yeah, it's a lot of episodes in season 3. It looks so faded, and I have to imagine that's just because shooting in Florida, clothes do tend to get bleached out over time, but. Yeah, the blue is far too light a lot of the time in season 3.
Yeah, there was a moment there when he took off flying, it almost looked green. It was so light.
Happens far too often. It's like he's not got a blue suit. It's almost slightly teal looking.
Yeah.
Which is understandable when it was Christopher Reeve, because you knew the limitations of the technology and the fact that they planned to color correct it back to blue later. But that wasn't a thing by the time Superboy aired, surely.
Yeah, at
surely
this
by
point,
that point they can just use a green screen.
Yeah, at this point they were using the green screen, so there was no problem.
Mm. They probably used a blue screen for some things, but
So now we get the idea of why the episode is called The Lair, because he's living in this cave as a lair.
I am fairly sure that the ending that I remembered is the ending now. Now that we've seen the photo. I always liked moments like that where he very nearly gets caught transforming.
Yeah, they happen a lot more often than we like to think.
It's always a funny moment.
Okay, I don't get the whole reason to use motorcycle helmets on these security guards.
It's probably just a way of saving money. So yeah, we've got two of my favourite Superboy guest actors in the same scene. I should have remembered this episode.
He looks so different. I didn't even realize it was the same guy until you pointed it out.
It is surprising how much of a difference just adding a beard makes. Obviously, between this episode and Paranoia, he shaved it and then kept it shaved because I think he had a third appearance in some episode, but I forget which one. I'm sure you told me what his other episode was.
Been a while since I.
Well,
You can almost feel the menace on this guy.
Oh yeah, he always puts in a solid performance, this guy. I'd forgotten about that line. I like it. Just the fact that out of Clark, Lana, and Matt, obviously Matt is the only one that's described as competent.
Yeah. Peter J. Fernandez
IMDb
so
is
great in
not
this.
helpful. Sorry?
Peter J. Fernandez was always so great in this.
Oh, yeah. He was always good. But yeah, the actor here that's got the beard, IMDb is not helpful in telling me which episodes he's done because according to that, he only appeared in Paranoia. So the fact that he's in this episode too, it's not listed on IMDb. So he could be in a third episode and IMDb will not be a help. But it's definitely him.
Yeah. I love how sadistic this guy is.
Yeah.
He's threatening Matt with water that's supposedly from the dump sites. Dumps it on him. Matt flinches, and then he starts drinking. He says, "Always buy bottled. The tap water around here is worse than the stuff we're dumping."
I know I've probably said this time and time again, but I really love the Bureau set.
Mm.
I just think
It
with
feels
all
it
the
feels like an actual functioning office the way they've done it.
yeah.
It's not like some of the sets we've had before, like the Schuster University sets that looked, kind of like slapdash put together. This
They
feels
obviously
like
knew that they'd spend a lot of time in this set, so they put in all the effort they could. And it's funny, that criticism you just said about some of the other sets is the same criticism that I have for Lois and Clark towards the end when they completely refurbished the Daily Planet interior. I didn't like when they changed it. I thought the original set looked like a newspaper office. Okay, it was slightly heightened, but much like the Bureau set, it was just the right level of detail for me.
yeah.
And then
And
they
yeah.
refurbished the entire set, and I just thought it looked awful. I just thought it looked like a sitcom. It lost all the style.
Yeah, at least with the Bureau, the way they lit it, the fact that it felt like the desks were not just something that they just bought brand new. They looked like older desks.
Mm.
I
And
mean, like,
it's
look at that
clearly,
lab set right there.
yeah,
I
I was
mean,
just going to
it's
say that
custom.
they've got like beakers and test tubes and stuff in the background, showing that they're not just writing reports. Like actual work is being done, like testing is being done for their investigations. It's a shame we didn't get to see that stuff being used a little bit more. I don't remember any occasion where it was really used. I
The
think
only
it's just
time we
set
really
dressing.
got anything like that was that episode with Roddy Piper, Metamorphosis.
What did they do in Metamorphosis?
That
Trying
was when,
to find a reversal formula or something.
yeah, and that's when Dr. Stern really came into play.
Huh. The only other time I remember Dr. Stern doing anything sci-fi was when she shot that thing in Mindscape with a laser pointer.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it, is not the most sci-fi thing. It's literally just a laser. I like that. I like that they actually showed her filling water from the river earlier as well, because I don't know, I feel like some shows would just include that in dialogue.
Excuse me.
Yeah, in the dark, this makeup looks so much better. Like
But
it
anything,
really does look so painful and gross and
yeah, anytime it gets into the light, it just loses some of the horror elements to it.
yeah. And like I said earlier, I think just adding a few shinier parts, like maybe just between the creases, if they just made it slightly shiny to make it almost look like he was sweating, even that might have gone some way towards it.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have done that thing that Rowdy Roddy Piper always does, where he seems to throw a bucket of water over his own head before every take, so that he's always dripping with water in every single shot of everything he's ever done. Maybe he's just an absurdly sweaty man. Who knows? It's funny. I was watching an episode of Best of the Worst, and they had a Rowdy Roddy Piper movie where he was doing it with some Canadian like aerobics guy that tried to become an action star. It was not a good movie, but they point out that clearly the action star respected Rowdy Roddy Piper as well, because he's covered in water too. It's like he saw that Piper would do that all the time, make himself always look like he was sweating, and just copied it. But it's had the unfortunate result where this actor throughout the entire movie just looks like he's struggling not to shit his pants. It's just like the entire time he's trying to look all serious, and yeah, it just looks like he's trying not to shit himself. It's the funniest thing. Red Letter Media fans, if you've seen that episode, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Mm. So he dies here.
Yeah. I forgot that he actually died, which is really sad, actually. And I'm not surprised that Superboy is as furious as he is.
Well, now he knows that the guy was lying to him as Clark. So now
Yeah.
he knows that Matt is not elsewhere.
There's a trap. Not the greatest electric effect, but it's not terrible. I like the way that the beams of electricity moved forward with him as he tried to escape. Like,
I think the electricity effect from Programmed for Death looked a lot better.
I agree. Yeah, the Program for Death one looked like it was actually interacting with the actors, whereas
Yeah.
like the way it would like go over them, kind of thing. That okay, it had a bit of interaction where Superboy was forcing his way forward, like the beams actually moved with him for a second and it sort of bounced back. But the rest of the time, it didn't look like those beams were like maybe if they had him like wrapping around his arms or something, that could have been. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't have made all that much difference.
So the president of the nuclear power plant escapes in a motorboat
And
and
then
is
gets killed
told.
anyway.
But here's the question: Who
Who killed
killed
him?
him?
I guess there's more than one person drinking the water.
Hmm.
Either that or the mutation has made him effectively immortal. So maybe he did die for a few minutes, and then once Superboy left, he just woke up and was like, oh, okay. I guess I can't die. Who
Yeah.
knows? Either way, I did really enjoy that episode, and I know obviously the ending there is just they're doing their take on Friday the 13th, aren't they? Like this whole episode is very much a sort of Jason Voorhees meets Superboy story, except it's got a tragic ending where the character almost dies. But I guess they still wanted to have the jump scare at the end. I don't know. I really like this episode. I don't think it's one of my favorites or anything. I'd maybe only give it a 7.5 at most.
I wouldn't go more than a 7.5 on this. I mean, it's got the dramatic elements that we need. You know, you pointed out it's got the almost losing his secret identity to Lana moment.
Yeah. I always love those moments. Like, any episode that has a moment like that, that's always going to make it onto my list of the top moments from that episode.
Yeah. It's got the comedic moment at the beginning with Jackson and Clark saying, "Well, the Loch Ness monster doesn't have arms, allegedly."
Yeah,
You know,
and it's
that
funny.
moment was very much that moment from Superman the movie where Perry is saying, "What's his favorite ball team, Kent?" and Christopher Reeve is like, "Oh,
Yeah. And there was another Superboy moment where oh god, what was it? There was another Superboy moment in another episode where Superboy oh yeah, it was I think it was the one where there was the guy who comes up to the front desk and he's got the he tries to sell Clark a few sides of beef after trying to sell him, convince him cow bones are alien bones. And he
yeah."
says, what, they don't have cows in outer space? They don't have cows on other planets? And Clark goes, none that I've ever been to. And it's just, yeah, it's a very similar joke. And I always love those moments. It's always great. Yeah.
Yep.
And
It actually gave Matt something to do other than sit in the office and be the voice of reason. You actually got to see him in the field. So,
I wish we got more moments like that for Matt. It's annoying when the best part of one of the best parts of an episode is something that doesn't happen very often. Because let's face it, Matt was there for 2 seasons. The fact that we don't see this happen more than maybe 4 or 5 times, as far as I can remember. I don't think he did it more than that. I'm only guessing it's 4 or 5 times.
Him actually going out in the field,
yeah.
This
It didn't happen very
episode,
often.
Jackson and Hyde, he went out into the field.
Yeah.
Rites of Passage.
Rites of Passage, yeah. Although even with Rites of Passage, I think he was only in the field doing the investigating because Jackson had a history with Smallville or something.
Jackson had the history with the crystal, but he was so rusty he needed Matt to go with him.
He needed,
help him.
Yeah.
You're right. There's only about 4 moments where Matt is actually doing his job.
Yeah. I don't even think in Sons of Icarus that he's doing any investigating. Like the what is it? Is it the Katia?
Yeah.
Yeah. They find him because he happens to be a descendant of this bloodline.
Yeah.
He didn't have to, like, maybe if he had been investigating the fire attacks and on its way he discovered them and they're like, oh, but you're one of us. And like that was how it had all happened. That would have given us another opportunity, but maybe that would have extended the running time too much. Maybe that would have necessitated a 2-parter.
Yeah, he didn't get to do a lot of what needed to be done, in the episodes. There's moments where he almost was just there just as set dressing. And I hate to say that.
Clark to have a best friend, and they knew that Andy wasn't gonna fit with this season. Like they got away with him in 1 episode, but there was no way you was going to be able to realistically have Andy work for the Bureau because he just wouldn't.
They got away with Andy in that 1 episode because Andy had grown up a lot since the last time we'd seen him.
Mm.
If we had gotten that version of Andy throughout the rest of seasons 3 and 4, he probably would have worked.
Maybe, but I don't see Andy's motivation for joining the Bureau because he wouldn't have an interest in that stuff. Like he wants to be famous, he wants to be rich. Going and working for a government organization that presumably, since Jackson is in charge, probably doesn't pay very much.
Yeah.
I can't see Andy being interested in something like that. I can definitely see TJ wanting to be there. I think TJ would actually fit really well with seasons 3 and 4. But obviously by that point, there was no getting TJ back. They wanted to forget season 1 as much as possible.
Yeah.
But no, Andy would have been good in the Bureau, actually. Not Andy, TJ, sorry. TJ would have been great.
Mm.
But Andy, I don't think... I think Andy has too many dreams and goals and ambitions. I think the Bureau would just
being
be
a civil servant will basically crush your dreams and goals immediately.
But it's mostly just that if he was to join the Bureau, all Andy would be doing is postponing his future because he'd just be wasting time.
Yeah.
There's nothing long term that Andy would get out of that. Maybe Lana could, Clark most definitely is learning investigative skills that would make sense for the Daily Planet.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe Andy would want to join the Bureau just so he could try and sell alien tech or something on the side. But that would still be
that would get him thrown in jail.
Yeah, but that would still be early Andy as well, because that would be Andy before he learns that actually, no, you can't just look out for yourself 100% of the time. You need to, I don't think later Andy would do that anyway. So it's just one of those things. Either way, what do we rate this? 7.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about fair. It's not the best episode in the world, but it's not the worst either. Has a couple of great guest stars. I always enjoy seeing both of those actors. And yeah. I don't think there's anything more to say on this other than that I really did like the villain. I thought he was suitably threatening, but also slightly over the top in especially in that scene where he throws the water in Matt's face.
Yeah,
I
he was
really
very,
liked
very
his
much a
performance.
James Bond villain at that point.
Yeah, it's very much the "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die" moment, isn't it? All he
Yeah.
needed was a laser to cut Matt in two.
No, he just had an electrical field.
Yeah, although not a terrible thing. It was never going to stop Superboy. We know that, but it slowed him down.
It always leads me to believe that the reason why Lex really hasn't been caught up until this point is probably because he's been selling his tech to guys like this. Because there is no way that somebody like this can just buy, electrical field that'll stop Superboy,
Although
out of a
his
catalog.
company does build, presumably they build, but they also run nuclear power stations. That's pretty high tech stuff. Maybe he could just have some of his boys from the lab knock that together for him. If the company's reasonably successful, he could probably pay someone to do it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe what's his name? Tommy Puck is down in the basement building shit.
Yeah,
Was it Tommy
probably.
Puck? Was that his name? It was Tommy Puck, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, for some reason I was going to call him Will Robinson, but that was the other character he played. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Not sure we're going to watch yet. As always, we'll decide on the day. Goodbye.
Viacom.